So there are a number of important preferences that we should try to set up when we're establishing Illustrator for web design. And one of those is the preview bounds, which we can find under general settings. If you press Command K or Control K on a PC, and we're going to look at use preview bounds. So vector graphics are made of anchor points and paths, and then fills and strokes on top of those. And it's very important for web designers to be able to work with precise measurements. And the problem with using strokes and fills, especially strokes, is that, for example, if we were to create a rectangle of 100 pixels by 100 pixels and then put a 1 pixel stroke around it, Illustrator will tell us that the rectangle is 100 pixels by 100 pixels, but if we saved it for web, we would see that it's in fact 101 pixels by 101. And this happens because the stroke has an extra 1 point around it. But there's this disparity between what Illustrator tells us and what the actual output is. This is a problem because we need to know exactly how many pixels our graphics are. So we can change this if we go to New Document and then open the Transform panel. We're going to make a 100 pixel by 100 pixel rectangle, save it for web, and we can see, as I said, the width and height is 101 by 101. So if we go to turn on use preview bounds and then check the size of the rectangle, we can see that it is actually 100 by 100, exactly what we want, or 101 by 101, which is exactly what it is. So next we're going to go to the Preferences window again and go to Units, and we're going to change the stroke size to pixels instead of points so that we are working within the pixel environment for web design. Often if we leave it on points, it can become confusing because we tend to think in pixels when we're designing for web. And lastly, we're just going to go to Guides and Grids, and Show Pixel Grid should be turned on by default. If it's not, just tick the box. And what this does is when we zoom in to 600% or more, we will be able to see the pixel grid as we've seen before. The next part of the tutorial is to set up the workspace for an ideal scenario for web design using Illustrator CS5. In terms of workspaces and panels, Adobe have done a great job in the latest versions of synchronizing all of the software to enable you to set up your workspace whatever way is most compatible with the way you actually work. So if we look on the Essentials drop-down menu at the top right of the screen, we can see a number of different options for what you might be using Illustrator for, and there's even a web option there. If we select that, we can see the workspace will change automatically. However, this web workspace is not ideal for web work. It's more of a it's a way for Illustrator to show the various features that are specifically for web, but it's not actually the most functional use of panels and layout and tools for web work. So we're going to change this. We're going to basically take it apart and build it back up again from scratch. So if we drag the panel on the right over to the left of the screen to undock it, and we're going to start off with the Appearance panel, one of the most important panels, and next we're going to close the Stroke panel because we don't necessarily need that as a separate panel. Reason being, in the Appearance panel, if we click on the word Stroke, it will automatically open up the Stroke panel. Same for Opacity, so we can close the Transparency panel as well. Next we're going to remove the Color panel because clicking on the fill in the Appearance panel brings up the Color panel. We don't need that. Then we're going to join graphic styles and symbols with swatches, and we're going to choose Display as Lists so that we can actually see all of the symbols and graphic styles as list form. Next we're going to drag out the artboards and layers panels on their own and open the transform panel from the Windows drop-down menu. The transform panel is one that we're going to use quite a lot for web design work. Next, drag out the align panel and close the pathfinder because we don't need that because there's a new tool in Illustrator that in CS5 that allows us to access that from the toolbar. If we open the info panel from Windows, we can close the navigator panel and click the show options for color values for fill and stroke. This allows us to see the hex values for fill and stroke automatically, which is very useful because without this the hex values for the colors are quite hidden in Illustrator. Next we're going to open the window and open up the type panel, paragraph styles. Okay, so we're going to drag transform to the right of the screen to create a new panel dock at the top, and then we're going to drag the layers panel beneath that and put the artboards panel in between those two. As we can see, the way the panel docks work, we'll see this sort of blue line in between to let us know we can dock a panel there. Next we'll put appearance between the transform and artboard panel and put the info panel beside the transform so it creates a second tab there. For the rest we're going to create a collapsed iconic dock starting off with the color guide, so we'll drag that to the left of our existing panels to create a new panel and then click the white arrows to turn it into icons. We're going to drag in symbols, then graphic styles on top of the symbols to create a second group, a panel group, and then we're going to put brushes and swatches into the same group as that. We'll create a new group with the gradient under this, and we're going to put align into another group under that as well, and put paragraph styles in the same group as align to work with our type in Illustrator. We're going to open up the window drop-down menu, go to swatch library and open up web safe colors, and just have a look at this. We're going to be using web safe colors, but this particular window is not very useful for our purposes, so we're going to close it. Go back to the window swatch library and open up Visibone 2. Now this is the same web safe colors that we looked at, but it's been organized into a particular format. So you'll notice that there are a couple of white squares in the four corners. We need to just drag out the window so that those white squares appear in the four corners, and we can see the colors have been organized into a swatch color wheel, which makes it much easier just to see and select the colors that we need at a particular moment. Okay, if you click on the flyout menu and make sure that the persistent box is ticked, this means that the Visibone 2 will automatically load up every time we open a new document in Illustrator. We're going to put this Visibone panel in the same group as the color guide, and we're going to just have a look at our layout now, and I think we have pretty much everything in place the way we want it for web design work in Illustrator. So we're going to save this workspace. If we go to the Essentials drop-down menu at the top and choose Save Workspace and just rename it as Web 2 and click Save. And now this profile has been, this workspace layout has been saved for us, and we can access this anytime we open Illustrator CS5 for web design.